This is Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Now SB's run that campaign, and he got a lot of people out, and Stacey got a lot of people out. But you know what? I was talking to this phenomenal woman senator who was telling me some good stuff about Stacey, so I have to apologize. You know, I said Stacey waited until the vote came up to start complaining about electoral fraud. I stand to be corrected. Stacey Abrams was raising hell 2 years ago. I'm happy to hear that. It wasn't just came to her. So, and I can be wrong. I love being wrong if it benefits us as a people. Please let me be wrong. I'd like to be wrong about Obama's offended ass, but I'm not. I would love for him to have done everything he could for us. That way I can feel good. You understand what I'm saying, Herb? I want my people free. I want us to get what's ours. But if we're not taking the steps to get there, it doesn't happen. But Stacey Abrams had introduced legislation to do stuff around the elections before she even decided to run for governor, or before she told people. And I want to give Gillum credit that now in Florida, at least 1 million people who've been disenfranchised now have the right to vote in elections in Florida.
Okay.
He supported that initiative. So at one point, prior to the election, about 1 and almost 3/4 million Floridians could not vote. That number has been reduced to just a few 100,000. You know, a lot of those are black votes. The next time they have elections in Florida, they're going to have even more fucked up machines still, because there are going to be more black people to vote. Gillum could have done more to excite people. And Gillum should have taken and had his wife do some stuff, keep the sisters voting for him. A lot of black men, they didn't feel Obama. I never did feel him. They voted for Michelle. I think some people in Florida could have turned out and voted for Mrs. Gillum and the kids. I think he's got two girls, or a girl and a boy, like Obama. They should have been let loose. Okay? SB is single. And SB was an early gay rights advocate. The white sisters in Mississippi still voted for a white bitch. I hope you learned something. And we've got to run campaigns. Find yourself, rent a woman. Even little gay-ass Harold Washington, who I loved, got himself a woman so black people would vote for him and not obsess on the fact that he was an old queen. Right?
So this is mayor of Chicago, right?
Yeah, and a great man. I mean, people know he's gay. Still, look, you hear me say, I have some gay heroes, but I either like you or I don't. Harold Washington had the sense to say, most black folks want to see a black man with a black woman. Most black women want to feel like that you could appreciate or like or be in a relationship with them as they should feel. See someone and wonder if he's a metrosexual. He'd rather have someone's bowel moving on his broomstick than her giving him a black baby. I mean, it's offensive to a woman to do that. Are you feeling me?
I hear you.
Pause for 1 second. I need to take this. Pause for 1 second. Brother Hurd.
Yes.
Okay, that was an interesting call. There's a group of us trying to do something for Bill Cosby, and we're going to succeed. There's some potential evidence that might clear Bill Cosby. I can tell you what it is, but that's what that call was about. What time is that? It is what?
It's 2:36 your time, a.m.
Yeah, it's 2:30 in the morning. Someone called me about this Bill Cosby thing. Somebody's got something. Yeah, you can put that up there. I can't tell you what it is, but apparently there's something that's going around that they did to Bill Cosby. That's an exclusive on your show.
Oh, wow.
There's something that they've done that somebody's putting out there. Uh-oh, this is going to probably blow up in a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
But on your show first, there's some evidence that's going to help Bill Cosby in court. Wow. Only on your show, man. Now, we were just talking about the confusion, but let me tell you, that system that ran in Chicago, and why, these people, white women run with their husbands or they run with their sons. Why are the Democratic people pushing metrosexuality candidates for black folks? Whenever you see them, they're single. Like Cory Booker's single. And Kamala Harris has a Jewish husband. And you never see her man, right?
Mm-hmm.
To see, you get to see white people's wives. The wife looks like, she's been hit or she's afraid he's going to leave her. And white men get good lawyers. They get to mess their women up. It's not like black women in court against black men. I mean, a black man could be a good, upstanding person. The wife could be on crack, meth, and K2, and they'll give her everything. I mean, she don't even show up in court and win. And the black man, kids know the dad, don't know the mother. The mom gets everything. But when white men go to court up against white women, ooh, they beat white women's ass, okay? And that's what, by the way, all the black women thinking that they're going to get with white men, 1 in 3 new marriages of black women marrying white men. When you get to court, sisters, you're going to understand why it's better to marry a black dude, because the court will just let you lie. They'll give you anything to hurt the black man. But when you go up against your white husband, when you're leaving him, they're going to kick your behind. They're going to let you know you're black. In fact, maybe that's going to help a whole lot of black women find out, because this identity politics have all these people thinking that they're just women and they just happen to be black. A lot of coons in our community, female coons as well as male coons. But back to Espy and Gillum, now for that matter, Jealous, and these other people are going to have to learn how to excite black voters to come out and believe, because they don't believe in anything. In fact, let me segue to the fact that people realize, as your show, We All Be, and Darren Muhammad and other folks, as people are disgusted with the black Democrats, they're beginning to feel the anger and the hatred of their people. Praise the Lord, that we need more. There's never enough anger and hatred towards black leadership. Now you see this rebellion against this drunk Nancy Pelosi, whose father was a racist anti-black mayor, D'Alessandro of Baltimore, who just all black people, and so did her little racist-ass brother. And so if your father and your brothers are racist, what the hell are you but a little drunk and racist yourself? She's only cared about sexuality and illegals and nothing for black people. Now there's a rumbling against a little alcoholic ass, and I just, holler. Feeling me? I'm just so glad that people are sick of drunk-ass Nancy Pelosi. Now, the woman that looks like the little gerbil that came out the man's ass in the Clumps Part 2, Marcia Fudge, the congresswoman from Ohio. Yeah, she does look like the gerbil with glasses on. Mm. They're talking about running her, and I guess that's the counter against Clyburn, so they'll still get a white person. Because Clyburn from South Carolina wants to be Speaker of the House if Nancy Pelosi doesn't run. So he does kind of Uncle Ben's two-step that I want it, but I don't want it if you want it, which is bullshit. If you want it, you want it. I mean, you look at someone like Kanye, who was there for 50-plus years. Why didn't he? If you're bold enough to walk around in your drawers in your congressional office, why not be bold enough to try to be Speaker of the House? And by the way, I knew that kindness was in his drawers back in the 90s when I used to do volunteer work. That was real. There's nothing wrong with being in your drawers, but why not do it at your home? Why be in your drawers in your office?
That's a good question. Wow.
Your package is that big and it needs that much air, brother. This is just tacky and uncouth. But why didn't somebody black? Why not Maxine Waters? Damn. all she had to do is like throw a wig over Nancy Pelosi, throw a wig over and beat her behind and take her gavel. I mean, why not bald-headed John Lewis? He's a person obsessed with attention. Why not him be speaking? He likes running his mouth. He ain't doing shit for his constituents. I mean, if you go into the black part of John Lewis's district, it looks like Yemen, the place that they've been bombing over near Saudi Arabia. I mean, the black folks in Atlanta don't have nothing. John Lewis hasn't done nothing for them. In fact, they feel like beating his ass worse than the cops did over in Edmund Pettus Bridge for how little he's done for them. But they keep voting for him. In fact, he ran uncontested. I mean, somebody should have run against him. I mean, somebody with a full head of hair at least, just to keep it interesting.
Mm.
So this rumble against Nancy Pelosi, a lot of people realize times are changing. Like I said, 20%. A lot of brothers didn't vote for Stacey Abrams. In fact, the brother that just called me, he didn't vote for Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams should have won that straight out. But you see, in Florida and Georgia and South Carolina and Alabama and Mississippi, blacks are more than the black population is greater than what's being reported. Everybody knows it. And all of those little coward niggas, no one has demanded a real head count of how many of us are there. And just by that count, be prepared to go to the UN or wherever to demand proportional representation for our people. I mean, you go to Georgia and they've got like what? Now because this woman, I was very happy. What's this woman's name? McBath.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Davis's mom got in Congress. That was a good story. And I hope she raises some hell for all the mothers who have kids that have been killed by the police. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got her, you got Bobby Scott. No, Bobby Scott is in Virginia. You got Sanford Bishop. You got baldhead John Lewis. You got that effeminate Negro that used to have hepatitis C, Hank Johnson. And you got McBath. Frankly, you should have 2 more black representatives from Georgia. You should.
Mm.
And you should have a few more. You should have 2 or 3. You should have three in North Carolina. And you should have more than Clyburn in South Carolina. I mean, how the hell, as black as South Carolina is, they only have 1 black congressperson? You get what I'm coming? How do you work it out? I mean, you've been to South Carolina. I have black people everywhere.
No.
And just 1 congressperson there, but they got like lots of white ones. Virginia, they've got, I think, 1 congressperson. And you've got 500,000 black folks with a felony conviction in Virginia. That's almost a congressional district by itself. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
There should be 2 or 3 in Virginia. And there are 2 in Maryland, but there should be 3 in Maryland. And they should have a senator in Maryland. There should be a black senator in Mississippi, a black senator in Alabama, a black senator in Louisiana, a black senator in Georgia, a black senator in Florida, a black senator in South Carolina. And they should be competitive for senators in North Carolina and Virginia, too. Fact. And our numbers, we need to have real count on how many black people there are. And these are things that you can do. I'm not talking about impossible stuff. Now, I will say this. I'm glad that Gillum refused to concede. And I know they're not going to let those votes from Broward, Palm Beach County, and Highland County be counted, but they should have been. But I just think that black folks should be raising hell against the state of Florida. They should be, if they could call for a boycott in North Carolina, that big fat man-titty dude, what's his name? William Barber. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Reverend Barber, yeah.
Now, they were calling for a boycott because they were saying no to men pissing in a little girl's room. Boycott of the whole state of North Carolina. Why isn't there a call for a boycott against Florida and Georgia over these damn voting machines and such? See, these little Negroes will fight for gay stuff, but won't fight for black stuff. That includes black gays. If you put your sex ahead of your people, you're a traitor. If a brother puts his blonde white girl over his people, he's a traitor. I feel that way. I don't care which side of the bed you're sleeping on. And I know it's going to make people mad, but, we need to have this conversation. And oh, wow, brother. So SB, I hope he wins, but you heard that white woman said she'd be on the up front, have a front seat to watch a hanging.
Yeah.
So she's for folks to lynch SB, but I'll just say to you that SB has run a consolidated campaign, which is a mistake. Remember how they brought in all the people to vote for Thug Jones to beat pedophile Roy Moore in Alabama?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't SB generate the same excitement for his race? They're trying not to be too outspoken, not to scare. White folk gonna hate and be scared of you. If you're kissing their ass, they're gonna be scared. They were scared when we were slaves. How are they gonna be comfortable now, fool? They have to really be willing to shake stuff up, win or lose. They all kind of want to think they can ease in, cruise in it. You can't ease or cruise into it. I mean, come on. I mean, look, I remember desegregation. People just hated your guts. You're black. We hate you. We don't want to accept you. You'll never belong. That's how it is. And the question is really, should we be counting on politics within the two-party system to solve all our problems? In reality, there should be a third party. In fact, that's where a third party could be very useful. To get like SB elected. If there were an independent party, which they do, they have Chokwe Lumumba's party. If SB was smart, he'd be putting money into their party so they could do all the little black militant shit, and he didn't have to do it. If they come out and vote for him, fine. Do you get where I'm coming from? They're the ones that can excite the community, and he can't be blamed for the same way Trump isn't blamed for the Nazis and the Klan. Why can't black folks politic more intelligently? We know he has to cross over and get 1% of the white vote. It seems like don't lose 15, 20% of the black vote, cooling for 1% of the white vote. Now, I wanted to just say to you, keep your eyes on Yemen. They're starving. They talk more about this little one Washington Post reporter that they turned into kibbles and bits at the Saudi Arabian embassy in Istanbul, a couple of weeks ago. But Yemen is a predominantly Afro-Asiatic black country, and 20 million people being starved to death by the United States. That's scary. Positive news in Africa is Eritrea and Ethiopia have an agreement. They're now tight again. They're not warring after all these years, going back to the 50s, off and on. There's been some kind of fight going on. Now, I was mentioning to you, Cameroons, they have a genocide in slow motion in the southwest portion of the country called Bamenda, which is where one of my genetic groups, the Tikar people, Tikir people are from, or Tika are from Bamenda. And they've been mass killed by this little retarded dictator that looks like a Mr. Sweet Potato Head, old dude in his 80s that needs to retire. I mean, something like prostate cancer kill him. God, please help us. Hear our prayer. Amen. I mean, Paul Biya, the country has a French-speaking majority. It's like 2/3, and then the third is English-speaking. And let's do this real fast. When the armistice was declared 100 years ago, Sunday, the English and the French, part of the deal that was worked out in Versailles afterwards is that German Cameroon would be under a joint mandate of France and Britain. And the French got a piece and the English got a piece. The French piece got its independence about 1960, only after the French had exterminated all of the Pan-Africanist, radical, serious people, and they had their coons in, okay? Alahaji, I forget his last name, forgive me, but this guy, Bia, has been in since the 80s. He's like the longest serving dictator in Africa now. But the guy, Alhaji, before, put in. And what the French would do in all their colonies in Africa is try to kill off or put in coons. And in fact, there was a coon, not a coon, but a real leader of the Central African Republic. His last name was Buganda. They blew his ass up on the airplane in 1950 before they even killed Patrice Lumumba's ass. They would them, and that's why that country's messed up. But they did the same thing in Cameroon. So you get these coons who are more interested in being French than being African. And what happened, the people in the English-speaking part of the Cameroons, which had a choice to be a part of Nigeria or to be a part of Cameroons, their dumbasses went with the French-speaking part of Cameroon. So they've been catching hell ever since as a marginalized group. And so they are in a state of civil war and genocide going on, Rwanda style. And it's kind of grievous because I have a very close friend there. In fact, within the last 2.5 weeks, a little white missionary from Indiana, I mean, they blowed his head off. Yes, I know to say blue, but I kind of like the way uneducated black people speak. It sounds better. They blowed his head off instead of they blew. They blowed his head off. Shot this white missionary's head. I mean, they shot his ass in the car. Boom. I mean, I don't know. It was like some reverse white cop shit. Maybe they've been watching YouTube. I'm telling you, white people, folks, see all these videos, y'all killing black people, folks. See, what would it be like for me to shoot one of these people? You know, karma's a bitch. Even when you're white. Can you imagine all these people watching folks getting shot by police handcuffs? See, nobody's going to say we're going to let nobody turn us around or we're going to forgive or we're going to love. Hell, I'd like to kill one of them. I'd like to kill one of us. And that's what I'm saying, do or even think. But that thought is out there. Shoot, you killing people. I'd like to cut one of you. I remember there was a story of a hijacked plane, and the Palestinians had this plane, and when they found out there was a white American on board, they started dancing. It's all about we would like to kill. We'd like to hurt one of them the way we get hurt. And they threw the little white person's ass off the airplane. I mean, so can we see how he lands? No, we'll be moving. So they threw his ass out. They threw him off the airplane. They just wanted to hurt someone that was white, that was American, to show them how it happens to them, to send a message, someone could do this to you. Now, you know, that's something, black people do that to one another. We wouldn't dare do that to anybody else because we're such punks. Not that I'm recommending that we do it, but you know what? If people thought we were going to do it, do you think the cops would shoot people like they do? Like the dude that got shot, or the bouncer, or the security guard?
Yeah, Jamil Robertson, yeah.
Okay, well, let me show you how small the world is. You called me. I was on the phone with Yvonne, and before I was on the phone with Yvonne, I was on the phone with my guy, Paul. The guy that got killed is the organist of Paul's favorite preacher activist, Reverend Hunter, to show you how small the world is. I was supposed to have a conversation with Reverend Hunter maybe 2 weeks ago, and it didn't happen. See how small the world is? That's the organist for his church. Are you feeling me? It's 6 degrees. Listen, this stuff is happening to people that you either know or some. In fact, I was talking about genealogy and the importance of, I do genealogy. I do searches, family searches for people. That's one of my side hustles. And so because it's really a powerful tool, when I went to this conference up in New York, It's a Mooney conference I was telling you about, which is cool. I met all these people from Georgia, and when you know genealogy, you know your family history or some of it, you can find your relatives or family members everywhere. It's almost astounding how often you'll find people. I mean, it's really incredible. If you ever take the time to learn something about your family, you know about Negroes that want to know about pyramids and we was Kangs and all this other kind of stuff. It'd be nice if you just your great granddaddy, your great grandpappy. I don't care if they were picking cotton. I don't care if they were rolling tobacco or rolling Miss Ann. You need to know who these people are. And as much as I know something about my family down in Georgia, and it was funny, I met all these people and we all had the same thing in common. We're all from Georgia, from the same area, same families, and we're all blacks, either mixed with or owned by Jews. They didn't even think about it. I was able to pull us all together and show how all of us are connected, and it was freaky. And I have a cousin who's 93 years old. He has the first congressional gold medal as a black Marine. Isn't that incredible? And I saw his last name, and I says, are you from Georgia or you live on the border in South Carolina? And he says, I live on the border. I says, exactly. His last name is Britton. And whenever you hear anybody with that name, Black, they're always related to me. The families are all like Jewish Negroes from Georgia, South Carolina, along Lake Thurman, southeast Georgia. Northeast corner of Georgia. All those little places in there. Those are my folk. You can find. You hear a name or two, you almost know where people are from. In fact, I met this lady. Her last name is Killings, and I was able to say to her, well, your name, are you from Georgia? She says, well, no, I'm not. I says, but your name is. She says, yes, my husband's from Georgia. I says, your husband's from Banks County. Right? It's really crazy. You can get into people's business, tell them which plantation and stuff they're from. We need to do this, not so much to have power, but do you understand that I was able to make connections to about 4 important people. By knowing something about who I am, it connected me to them. And so, I'm hoping I get other people for them to give me a holler with WRandyShort@gmail. You can keep my information out there and let them know I do searches. I don't ask people for that much. But, I was able to take 2 or 3 people. I took 3 people. I took 3 cases. I was able to trace one person's family all the way back to England in the early 1600s in a week. I was able to show another partner of mine that his family, they were probably never slaves in a week. I found one woman's family back to the 1700s. And they weren't slaves either in 2 days. The most I charged anybody is like $150. But those are friends. I'm probably keeping in that range. So if people are having like family issues, they want to do something. And as much as the archives by bus is like 20 minutes from my door, all I have to do is jump on the bus, get down there. And I'm thinking 2 or 3 days, I have something for people. And, but it's so powerful. I meet people all over. I think I was telling you, I always had this incredible love for Aretha Franklin. I'd never paid attention to the fact that the guy who was recording her and her dad has to be a cousin of mine because of the last name. And it's a connection. We're all connected here. I was telling you, I didn't explain to you why your name is important to me. That there's a Hurd family here. They're from down south somewhere, and they could pass. You have light-skinned people in your family from Louisiana or something like that? Where are your people from?
I mean, that's a good question. Like from the Carolinas, South Carolina.
Okay.
I heard, up from the Midwest, Oklahoma, Arkansas.
But originally, they were from down south, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me break something down to you. You're probably in the family. let me explain to you something. I think it's the same family. The street that I lived on, which is 2 blocks from Howard University, 116 Bryant Street, Northwest Washington, D.C., is in the case Hodge v. Heard, which is part of the Shelley v. Kramer, which overturned exactly 70 years ago covenanted housing where they could build housing and exclude black people.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know your family was in the civil rights movement.
Mm.
Some of the Herds could pass for white. The Herds got a house. I lived at 100 Bryant, which means you're about no more than 10 doors from the house that I lived in, your family lived in, your relatives did. One of them passed for white. They tricked a landlord a realtor whose last name was Gilligan, like Gilligan's Island.
Mm-hmm.
She sold the house, and then once they moved in, they had some of their dark-skinned cousins come through, and the white neighbors objected, and they tried to get them out of the house, and the Herds went all the way to the Supreme Court and won.
Mm.
The guy who runs the D.C. Public Records Office, who's a friend of mine, is married to a Herd, and it's her family that was involved in the case.
Okay.
You didn't know that, so it's got to be the same family. You didn't know that, so I can live anywhere I want if I had the money, typically because somebody in your family had some balls.
Mm. And you said it was a U. I know as I heard that people confuse me with they has a U instead of an E. And he's a well-known eye doctor and musician here in Memphis. But who knows? I mean, it's possible.
No. See, black folks are really silly. Whether it's a U or an E, it's the same people.
Mm-hmm.
We have to stop. Look, these are the white people's names that they gave us, and folks change stuff. I have relatives in South Carolina with the last name Short with 2 T's.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 T's and an S, 2 T's and an ES, 2 T's and a Z, 1 T and an S, 1 T and an ES, an ER. It's the same damn people no matter how they spell it. It's the same name. So I had folks who wanted to marry their cousins would change the spelling of their names so they'd be seen as different. Some people would spell the name Zellars, Sellers, Zellars. It's the same people. They just changed the spelling. That way no one will say you married your second cousin. The changing of the spelling has nothing to do with the actual origin of the name.
Mm-hmm.
Especially black people. They change it, the spelling would be changed. If you heard the name Welcher, their name may not be Welcher, it could be Wiltshire. If it's Wiltshire, it's my folks. But they change people's names. See, when you go in and someone will tell you your name is whatever I say it is, it used to be that white people did all the paper keeping all the counties, right? If I tell you what, if I say Heard is an E, it's an E. If I say Heard is a U, it's a U. You're going to object. You can't read or write, so it's whatever they wrote down. So you get stuck with, for example, the woman's name was meant to be Diana, but they wrote down Diane. And then it got changed for fame purposes. It got back to Diana. Diana Ross was supposed to be named Diana, and the white person put Diane down. They didn't want to give a black kid the name that the mother wanted them to have. Okay, my folks say our name is Wiltshire. White folks say there's no such name, Welcher. So they changed the name, so everybody's name got changed. So a person will meet someone named Welcher, meet someone Wiltshire. Well, we're not related, even though the name is almost identical, right? Because we should never let other people dictate to us what truth is, and we should look for commonalities instead of dissimilarities. A herd is a herd. A short is a short, even if I don't know how or where or what. The day we start doing that, we'll be able to come together. You see, the problem with black folks is we operate in units too small. If you open up a store, because everybody, when the Chinese have no more than 25 last names. Did you know that? Almost all the Chinese are Lu or Yu or Yang. They don't have thousands of names because it's more or less many cultures, but basically they had continuity. We've got all these different names. They don't mean anything. You know what means something, brother? Geography. That's why I asked the brother, are you from Georgia or are you from the South Carolina border with Georgia? I knew exactly what to ask him because it didn't matter what his name was. What mattered was where are you from, because we're a breeding population. It's a nice way of saying people near each other fuck one another. That's the only thing. You can't screw someone on the moon, even if you want to. Which means if that herd lived anywhere near the other herds in 100 years, the way people get around, people getting their brooms dusted, folks getting their cars punched, there's people in a similar place and they've all been screwing each other. People are breeding populations. Instead of this last name, that's some white shit. You live in a similar place and everybody's been screwing each other even multiple times. Meaning that you could be a cousin to someone 4 or 5 times, not just one way. See, if let's say that your father married his 4th cousin, okay, that means that you're related to your dad and your mom and them coming together. Do you get where I'm coming from? And if she had any other relatives, let's say that she had a relative that married one of his sisters, they'd be related to that person again. We have lots of connections. What's messing with black folks is we're not recognizing how integrate. We want to integrate with everybody but ourselves. And what I've learned is it's very important to figure out who people are, where they're from, and look and see if there's a connection between you and them. It might be useful. And more often than not, it is connected. In fact, what I've learned is there is a spirit within our genes. Like, where in Carolina are your people from? Do you know?
Greenville.
Greenville, South Carolina, or Greenville, North Carolina?
South Carolina.
Okay. You heard of Lawrence, South Carolina?
No, I haven't.
It's close. I'm just trying to say to you, that's very close to where I have people. You heard of Beasley's?
Beasley's? No, I haven't heard of Beasley's.
Okay, well, anyway, at some point, one day you have to come here and take you to the archives. You start looking up your family, you'll find out there may be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 last names. But it's the same people, but they all come from a specific place. Meaning the place is more important than the name. And once you learn about, for example, if I were to go to the place where my grandmother's from, I mean, if you're from Lincoln County, Georgia, Washington County, Georgia, Wilkes County, Georgia, or it's invariably that person's related to me, even if I've never seen them before. If they're from Richmond County and the county between Richmond and Wilkes, the county that Evans and Martinez is in, like the guy that got shot at Virginia Tech, the first one that they killed, remember the Korean shot all the people 11 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Guy, the first person he killed, I can assure you, is some cousin of mine because he's from Evans or Martinez, Georgia, which is like just a few miles from all the people in there, in those little towns, Mitchell, they're all related to each other, which means that's a cousin of mine, that little Korean shot. Because once you know geography, a lot of black folks that get to these cities and they don't want to know anything about the little towns and communities that their people came from. But it's important to know that because you can then start, if we have the right heart, mind, and spirit, you can start doing linkages to say, oh my God, like when I was talking to Bill Cosby, he was hot, kind of chilly until I mentioned, they started talking about Lawrenceville. And it says, yeah, I got family in Lawrenceville. But after that, he basically knows, oh, yes, well, he is related to me because Lawrenceville only has, no more than 2,000 people now. They got to be, right? Everybody's in these little small towns. Do you realize if most of us go back to these small towns, then a lot of us are related that don't even know, and it has nothing to do with names. So my name is Short, but I have relatives that are named Little, like Malcolm Little. And I have relatives that are named Poole, like Elijah Poole, a.k.a. Muhammad. And all of these things are interconnected. I have relatives named Farmer, like James Farmer, whose family moved from Carolina to Texas. You get where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
The farmers lived in Virginia and North Carolina. Chances are very great that that person. And at one point, we're going to recognize that we're all maybe fifth, sixth, no more than fifth or sixth cousins to each other, either through marriage or by blood. That's every single solitary black person's related to everybody else. That should be a reason to stop killing each other. That should be a reason for us to cooperate and respect one another. That's a reason for us to buy from each other, to help each other, because in reality, we're a family, we're a people. If we could at least work that out.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was coming back from the funeral, the guy that picked me up, I started talking to him about the fact that the people and part of my family are Blackfoot Indian. His eyes got big because, you know what? His family is Blackfoot Indian. You get me?
Mm-hmm.
We've been getting along for years, just hit it off. I always encourage people. In fact, I'll just do this quick story. I've probably done it before, but my cousin, the late great Thelma Short Doswell, first certified black genealogist in the country. I mean, that's someone that even the crackers had to bow down to because she was so hard in her stuff. And by the way, the professor I told you that died, Dr. Suleiman Yang, true story. The man liked me. We hit it off first time we met. And about 2-3 years into our conversation, he said to me, I've been teaching a long time. You're one of the brightest students I've ever had. You're different. Why are you? And I was saying to him, Dr. Yang, I grew up knowing a lot more about my heritage than most blacks do. Unfortunately for them, fortunately for me. And I started telling him about Selma and how Selma was going to Africa in the 1950s, tracing our family roots in the 50s, going to Africa when you had to go on a boat. And I was saying to him, I even know one of the towns that we came from in West Africa, in Senegambia. And I asked him, have you ever heard of a place called Bakau? And this had very small eyes, but they got as big as like billiard balls. And he says, what town? This is Bakau. And he's like, say it again. This is Bakau. This is what she says it is. And I says, does that mean something to you? And he says, yes, that's where I'm from. This is my teacher in school, man. Imagine your favorite teacher, cool, and you find out that this person somehow is from the same place. Understand geography. If my family is from Bakau and his family is from Bakau, he and I are related. Even if we don't know what. And that's one thing I find annoying with black people in genealogy. You have to have the exact date and all this other kind of stuff, or else they're not. You know what? Small-ass black people, I wish they'd all die off so the good ones of us can get something done. If someone's trying to connect to you that's legit, that's a decent human being that's not trying to, like, be laid up in your house with some crack hole and eat all your food, exchange the information and just assume kinship, provided they're not trying to get you to carry a package across town. Okay? We don't need any scum in our family, but because we're going to have that anyway. But if you're meeting other people, it becomes stronger. Do you get where I'm coming from? It broke my heart. There was a situation where that girl, Tawana Brawley, was down in Hopewell, Virginia. I did not know that. I learned late. Had I known earlier and had some knowledge, my cousin was the first black mayor of Hopewell. We could have run interference. I can call my cousin and say, look out for her. You get where I'm coming from? This is how black people used to operate. You'd call your cousins as like a nation. Now, people, don't talk to each other. I mean, if you don't live in the same neighborhood or go to the same church, I can't deal with you. We're atomizing instead of coming together saying, well, I got people down in Georgia, people in Kentucky, people over here. I can connect to all of them and make them move. This is what these Latinos and other people are using that black folks aren't using anymore. You get where I'm coming from? Now family's replaced by your frat, which mega church you go to where you don't know anybody and the pastor doesn't give a damn about you except for when you're not giving, or which subdivision you live in and whether you have the right pass key to go to the swimming pool or to the clubhouse. That's substituting for real family connections based in history and lineage and blood. And, this is what's needed. I'm just telling you, if we started doing this kind of stuff, in fact, I even do it with people that are not black. If I have to, I've learned to make friends with people that are Belarusian. I was working the polls for helping this Jewish lady vote. And I told her, it doesn't matter if I look like it to you, but I says, we may be more alike than different, even though I'm very happy to be black. And she says, well, I'm from Czechoslovakia. And I says, well, my family's from Belarus. The lady almost knocked over the voting machine. She says, my family's from Belarus, too. She says, you? I says, yeah. I says, I'm as shocked as you are, trust me. And she's like, well, and we talked for like an hour. I mean, because it just... And I said, yeah, well, my folks are Jewish, and they had to, get out. I said, my family, they killed them. I said, well, can we trade numbers? We have to learn how to, as a people, integrate with ourselves around this shared history. And it is not hard. And you'd be amazed when it's not your name. Let me tell you, I was talking to this guy who sent me a number. He's a representative in South Carolina. He started telling me about this brother doing this stuff, doing community work and development in St. Louis. When he said the last name, I asked him, was he from Canada, Virginia, or North Carolina? And at first he said he's from South Carolina. He says, no, you're right. He is from North Carolina. I says, well, then he's my cousin because his last name is Gray, like Freddie Gray. And these people, they're from certain places, right? They're in Norfolk, they're in Wilson, North Carolina. All of these people are one family. My great-great-grandfather's a Gray. So Freddie Gray is my cousin, and this dude is too. Now, this guy's doing economic development. I want to do some business in St. Louis. And in that area, do you realize I can use that connection through family to get it? This is what we don't do anymore. When I was working on the film with Marzier, the Dred Scott Nation, I was trying to hook up with people, and this lady referred me to this brother whose name was, I think, Charles or George, something I forget, but the last name was Lancaster. And I told her, sure, I'd love to talk to my cousin. She gave me his number. I called him, talked to him, and initially he's doing what black people do. Please do not connect, do not identify with me. That's how black people bitch about how everybody rejects them, and then when you're trying to connect them, they become snobbish, some passive-aggressive garbage that black people are. It's really retarded. We talked to this dude, and he kept saying he didn't know this person or that person. Trust me, not everybody's named Lancaster, okay, and not everyone's named Short, and there are reasons for why. So when I got frustrated with him, I says, well, do you know Paul Lancaster? I says, do you know my cousin Paul Lancaster, the guy who's a drummer? And he says, what do you mean, do I know him? I says, well, do you know him? He says, yes. He says, well, how? He says, he's my brother. I said, then you're my cousin, fool. It took me like 15 minutes to get to that. After that, he was cool. He owned like a black bookstore in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of stuff we do here. They're doing there, same name. And it's the same family. And so we've got a family from Connecticut all the way into the Caribbean, right? And also in Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia, okay? And it's the same, and some in England too. It's the same people. And do you realize that if we could connect to the right people in our families, the kind of trade and business and development could happen very quickly. This is what Jews use. This is what the Chinese use. Our families are too small. We have too few cousins. We're working with units too small. This is where the Africans got beaten by the Europeans and the Indians got beaten. You want to have a little teeny tiny tribe like the Sioux fight the United States of America? It was too few.
Mm.
We're trying to achieve things with too few people. This is what's holding black people down, is the lack of a critical mass. You get where I'm coming from? If we were connected, like I'm saying, if Cosby, I said it to him, if you tapped into your family, you're talking about 100, 200,000 people. Out of that 100, 200,000 people, you only need like 200 or 300 that give a damn about him, that just turn the country out. You know, if you get where I'm coming from, you only need a few people that are really pissed. I mean, gay people prove that you only need a vocal few to change everything. the few that don't that are going to be heard. And so I'm challenging you, brother. Look into that. In fact, hire me. I can do some consulting. I'll give you a cut rate. I'll go right down the archives, take your father, your mother people, and dig your stuff up and send it to you. And we have a conversation about that because, you know, I was showing this dude named Jermaine how his family owned, like back in the 1850s, $1,000 worth of taxable property, which is probably worth more than that. So what would that be, like $100,000? That's a huge piece of land for a black person. And they were free.
Mm-hmm.
They were voting. Amazing. You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
And same sorts of things apply. I don't know why we're having this discussion, but yeah, brother, I'm telling you, you would have a phenomenal Skip Gates, who gets on my damn nerves because I'm part Indian and so are you. He pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to do a show or two and just have some people go in and learn about all the stuff their family did. I just saw my grandfather's draft record, this, that, and the other, and learning the stuff that people do.
Right.
And not only that, who we are to each other. You get where I'm coming from? Because I used to wonder, when I took a friend down to the archives to do some research, that's when I learned that Marvin Gaye is like cousins to me through his mom. And it never made sense to me why Marvin Gaye's people would be hanging around my grandfather and grandmother, right? Because I'm thinking about names. I'm thinking Gay and Short. No connection, right? None. Not that I'm aware of. Only until I learned there are other names like Cooper. Cooper is interchangeable with Short and Rocky Mountain. Marvin Gaye's mother's a Cooper. Marvin Gaye's mother's my grandfather's cousin. And once my grandmother married my grandfather through marriage, she's her in-law, making Marvin like maybe third cousin to me. Closer than Bill.
Wow.
And I don't know. I had a friend whose last name was Gay. I was trying to figure out if they were connected. And it turned out I was, because it had nothing to do with names. It had everything to do with geography. But the guy whose name Gay was related to me on another side of the family. I would go in there and it's like the second time I went down the archives to do research with someone and find out the person I'm trying to help is related to me. And there's, again, we're using these names. The names are completely ineffective. What mattered was the overlapping geography. And guess what? The other thing that really freaked me out, you start looking back over who you're friends to. You're gonna find out that many of them have the exact same African tribal groups without you even knowing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding the people that I'm connecting to are Hausa, Fulani, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're South African. I got like some Zulu. Somehow, I don't know how it is, but I got it. Always from the same places without any notice, because these genes have a knowledge into themselves. And so there's nothing that's necessarily coincidental. There's a brother that does a blog show up in Chicago. His name is Dino. You may have heard of him.
Yeah, yes.
You know, Dino's my cousin.
Okay.
I didn't know that. We just hit it off. Everything's cool. It's like I know that I've never met him in person. We've been talking on the phone for years. And one day I thought, you know what? I need to test this theory of my cousin. If you get along with people too well, it's because they're actually your people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start probing around to ask him about his family, and that name I mentioned to you, the name Battle, for the name for Aretha,
Mm-hmm.
that family too. And the story is the same story that I find for all of the people in my family. The reason that people scattered, it's always the same story. There was someone in the family who flipped out on white people, and that's why people moved. There was somebody that couldn't take it, can't take being treated badly. And that's a trait known in my family. People have like this very bad temper. If you mistreat someone, they'll flip out on you. So Bill Cosby, I think I told you the story. Bill Cosby's uncle cut this white man's head off for calling him nigger, and that's why the family moved to Philly.
Mm.
My grandfather shot the sheriff's son down in North Carolina because he pushed my grandfather into a puddle of mud, and his white, what's that thing called? White linen suit. He had a white suit on. The white guy got mud on his suit, and my grandfather couldn't let it go.
Wow. Okay.
So he shot the dude in broad daylight, so everybody could see he did it. And so my family had to move to D.C., right?
Mm-hmm.
Dino, his grandfather, shot up some white people, and they had to move. And the stories, everybody in the family is the same thing. In other words, the men in the family, nice, even-tempered, nice people, pushing the wrong way. They're completely different once they're angry. You know, there are people who like to fight. I don't have that I know in the family that like to fight, but if you get them angry, they're insane. They'll do this, nothing that there's no limit to what they'll do once they're made angry and you can't calm them down. And I was at the Voice of America for the Hausa language thing, and I was asking, and the people says, yeah, that's basically the temperament of our people. Really nice, easygoing, easy to work with. If you piss them off, I mean, they just burn up and destroy everything. It's completely changed night and day. This hair trigger temperament runs with this specific group. They'll do anything for you, make them mad, to be ready to like kill everybody. And that's not. So if you're nice to them, you never have a problem. They're cool. You can even walk on them, but if you push them too far, they'll stand up to anybody. And I have all of the people that I've tended to make friends to. I keep finding that they come from the northeast corner of Carolina or the Virginia southwest corner, or their people are along the South Carolina, Georgia border. There's some connection. This is where these people tend to come from. And even if they're from another state, originally they were in those areas and got moved. And over and over again, the behavior is the same. They're well educated. They tend to have a facility with language. They're very religious. They tend to be big into media. Like, I have a cousin who is named Sam Short, who was head of media in Sierra Leone. Do you get where I'm coming from? Just everybody does the same stuff everywhere, because if I take a banana tree and move it to Iceland, it's still a banana tree. Okay, moving it doesn't make it less of what it is. It's simply been moved. Removing people from wherever they were in Africa or indigenous, putting them somewhere else doesn't change them. So the Greys, like that are doing development that this guy is talking about in St. Louis, is no different from the Greys in Nova Scotia. It's no different from the Greys in Norfolk or the Greys in Wilson or the Greys in Baltimore. And so you get where I'm coming from. But the name may change, but it doesn't stop the people. I don't know. I think, did I tell you the story when I went down to Sandersville? And we're doing
Elijah Muhammad connection. Found out you was related to Elijah Muhammad.
Yeah. But I'll tell you about the old ladies. People can tell. You haven't been anywhere and someone knew who you were, just looked at you and told you?
Yeah.
Because there is a character. Do you realize that this we need to regain as a people, to know who we are and know families and know situations, because knowledge of self allows you to guide people to do things. You see, the Egyptians could build the pyramids and other things because they knew who they were. They knew what they were about. They knew one of them. See, if we need to know who we are, you would be less likely to shoot someone if they're yours, although there's some people that like shooting friends and family, but people can get lost. But